we have Miss Jacqueline Bryant Campbell. Jackie is a quilt artist based in Washington, D.C.
So, what inspired you to start your business?
It's probably the early 90s. I had gotten a catalog from G Street Fabrics, and they had this fabric on the cover that had brown ballerinas on it. Having been a brown ballerina and not finding that representation, I wanted this fabric. So I bought like 3 yards of it. I did not have any idea what I was going to do with it. It was weighing on me. It's like, I got to use this. And by then I had a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old daughter. And so I took a quilting class. That quilt was a hit, and I started making more patchwork quilts for people. But I made one for my father, and when he opened it, he said, "This is art." He hung it up, and that really changed the trajectory of my quilting. Meanwhile, my daughter figured, well, if mommy can make a quilt, mommy ought to be able to make me a doll. And so I started making these dolls. My mother was like, you do really good work. You could sell this stuff. And that's how I got into the business of it.
So, in that, how did you stay motivated? And was that your only source of income at the time?
Yes.
So that's motivation.
That's my motivation. Yes.
The quilts, do you just do them on a commission base, or do you just make them and sell them as is?
It's both. And these are wall hangings. The one that I finished for the church that Naima mentioned, it was 2 panels that were each 6.5 feet high by 3 feet. So they're huge. And so that was a commission. I worked with this church on this project for over a year.
I think everybody would like to know, what inspires your work?
It is as simple as these fabrics were all stacked up together for weeks. And finally, they said, "Hey, we would very much like to be a face." One of my favorite photos of me with my mother when I was a little. And so I did a version of that. And that piece really struck a nerve with a lot of folk. And one of the things that I guard really, really closely is a photo album that belonged to my great grandmother, of pictures that were taken when she was in high school and college. Bringing those pictures to life has been a thing that has been ongoing for the last several years.
How would you suggest someone start a business doing what you do?
Naima and I both will say to other people when we're at events, when they are underpricing their work, like, you need to raise your prices. And we both have struggled with accurate pricing as well, because you don't know what the market will bear, but you also don't want to overprice yourself, so that people just kind of walk away. And so finding that sweet spot is really kind of a trial and error. There's a base level, and then there's the complexity factor. So if what you want is pretty straightforward, it's this rate. But if it's going to require me to do a lot of gymnastics, we're going to have a higher rate for that.
Because I've learned that over the years. It's just like, usually when they say, okay, it's like, okay, next time I need to raise my price.
That is the hardest thing. And it's hard to hear people say, oh, that costs too much. But you do have to look realistic. How much time did I spend on this? How much were my materials? Even if you only used stuff you already had, it took you time to make that thing. If you have a decent business plan, if you've got people around you who have been doing this for a while, who can kind of steer you away from some of the more foolhardy things that you might do, like saying yes to every single opportunity that comes your way without fully vetting it, and then finding yourself in front of the wrong people.
What would you say was the biggest risk you took in your business?
I mean, I think starting was probably the biggest risk, but because I was really trying to find a way to make some money in a very hostile economy, I didn't have time to really think about that. The first event that I was a vendor at, I had one of my girlfriends went with me, one of my cousins was with me, my mother and several aunts were at the event. So I figured, if this goes badly, I got my mommy. And it didn't go bad, but because I had kind of that safety net there, where if I needed to go cry on somebody's shoulder, I could. It didn't feel as frightening as it might have if I hadn't had that.
What's your criteria of like, okay, no, I'm not going to take this on?
Sometimes it's hard to put a finger on it. You just get a bad vibe off of somebody. I accepted a commission, and I always ask for half up front. Throughout the making of the piece. I would send her pictures of fabrics. When the piece was done, I let her know and that she should pay me the rest of the money, and I didn't hear from her, so I sold it.
Going forward, putting that in your agreement that if once it's done, payment is due within such and such days. You'll charge them for storage, or let them know after 2 to 3 months I sell it.
For those people that are interested in Jacqueline's work, please visit her online. We will have all of the links in the show notes.
All right, I'm Letitia Winston of Keeping You in Stitches, along with Naima Dozier of Fearless Threads, and Zahia, Cover Me Chic and Regent Design, and Jackie, our guru. We'll see you next time.